Good morning, all of you. Welcome back to the channel. So let's start with the analysis for 22nd of August 2023. So Supreme Court एक new bench constitute करने वाला है to hear the Kaveri water issue. कल भी ये news में था, we took it up, and जो relevant dimensions हमें पता होने चाहिए, that was discussed yesterday. So तमिलनाडु ने बोला है कि release of water was a dire necessity to meet the demands of standing crop. So basically Karnataka जो है वो upper riparian state है, तो advantage lies with the Karnataka state, and because of water deficiency and weaker monsoon this time, so Tamil Nadu said that जो agree की गई थी quantity of water supply किया जाएगा to Tamil Nadu, that has not been met. So no governor's assent. Manipur assembly session is a non-starter. So Raj Bhavan did not issue any notification to convene the assembly on Monday, though the state cabinet had recommended holding a special session to the governor. And Congress says that constitutional machinery is also broken down in the state. So herein even comes in the demand for president's rule. So firstly, जो यहाँ पे mentioned है कि what is the constitutional procedure? Constitutional provision क्या बोलते हैं regarding starting of the assembly session or even for that matter parliamentary session, तो उसका क्या proper procedure है? जो स्टेट कैबिनेट है वो रिकमेंडेशन देते हैं, बट यहाँ पे बात हो रही है स्पेशल सेशन की. तो जो रेगुलर सेशंस होते हैं दे आर डिफरेंट, यहाँ पे स्पेशल सेशन कन्वीन करने की बात की जा रही है. तो स्टेट कैबिनेट ने रिकमेंड किया था कि स्पेशल सेशन होना चाहिए, बट गवर्नर डिड नॉट गिव द असेंट टू कन्वीन द असेंबली सेशन. So Chandrayaan-3, it reveals the dark side of the moon, that is south pole of the moon. Ahead of the scheduled landing of Chandrayaan-3 lander on Wednesday, that's tomorrow. So ISRO, it has released the images of the far side of the lunar surface. So we've got the images, and this is one of them. You can see an image of the far side of the moon clicked on Saturday by Chandrayaan-3. And the photo, it marks Hien, which is a lunar impact crater next to the northeast limb of the moon. So this is the crater you can see, and far side of the moon को हम dark side of the moon भी बोलते हैं, south pole of the moon भी है, and it is always hidden from the earth. Basically, earth से it is never visible, and images they were captured that has been shared, and these were captured by the lander hazard detection and avoidance camera, which is on board, and camera that assist in locating a safe landing area. So एक कैमरे की हेल्प से we can also identify कि कौन सा safer landing area है without boulders or deep trenches during the descent is developed by ISRO at SAC. So this is the special camera that has been installed. So CGI asked the government if it intends to dictate the use of judicial review. So CGI, he said कि some parts the draft of the standard operating procedure जो center government ने prepare किया है to tailor the judicial conduct in the government related cases read as if the center wanted to dictate, कि center dictate कर रहा है judiciary को how it needs to act when the matters are related to the central government in terms of exercising the judicial review. So CGI ने बोला है कि I've gone through जो government का SOP draft है, and there are some points which actually say कि how judicial review should be exercised. मतलब एक तरीके से that's how, मतलब जो word dictate use किया गया है कि ऐसा लग रहा है कि government बता रही है कि judiciary को कैसे judicial review use करना चाहिए. So the tone of SOP is somewhat reflecting upon that. So today is the BRICS summit, which is happening in Johannesburg, South Africa, and this is going to be the first in-person summit after the COVID-19 pandemic. So already, like, we have taken up a few major agendas this time at the summit, and BRICS test for India's multipolarity rhetoric. So this is going to be one of the things. When we talk about agenda expansion of BRICS, then why countries are interested to join BRICS. So that was also discussed yesterday. The phrase that was used was to complete their unfinished economic progress. So the time period from which the countries which intend to join BRICS, the time from which they were fighting and they won independence out of the colonial rule, and the progress towards economic development. So to complete that agenda, that objective, the countries they wish to join the BRICS grouping. And another important agenda is BRICS currency. All right. And then obviously you need to know about what are the historical and in the past, what are the important initiatives taken by BRICS. So the challenge before New Delhi is to choose between a China-centric or a West-centric world order or balance the two. So this is one of the challenges in front of India. And let's see how, like, what is going to be India's stand regarding it. Then you need to know clear-cut comparison between G20, G7, Quad, and BRICS. All right, so and that is important thing. So we see a divide between Saudi Arabia and UAE. It has become public. So we see that obvious differences exist in the regional politics between the two countries, Saudi Arabia and UAE. So this surprising outburst signals the end of the camaraderie between the Saudi Crown Prince and the UAE president. And when MBS first came into public life with his father's accession to the throne in 2015, it was obvious that he had a special bond with Mohammed bin Zayed. Many observers, they believe that Saudi prince in his late 20s then saw the more experienced MBZ as a mentor. So दोनों countries एक दूसरे को they see as strategic partners, and they were partners in the war in Yemen as well. They worked together to strengthen al-Sisi's regime in Egypt also, and they viewed Iran as a regional threat. And they disliked the Muslim Brotherhood and then collaborated closely to implement the blockade of Qatar as well. And in 2019, they also subverted the nascent democratic process in Sudan by backing the armed forces against the civilian prime minister. So these are different, we can say, time periods and during different dilemmas and challenges. Both the countries, they worked together. They were basically on the same page. So over the years, हमें कुछ differences देखने को मिल रहे between the two countries. So 2017 में UAE, it abruptly rejected the proposal to cut the production of oil, which was put forward by OPEC plus, and on the ground की जिसका base production है of crude oil that needed to be significantly increased. So Abu Dhabi was then investing heavily in augmenting its oil production. So that is why they kind of denied कि oil production cut नहीं किया जाना चाहिए. So differences apart from this, they then became apparent in several areas of even regional politics. Like UAE, it abruptly withdrew its troops from Yemen in 2019, but they continued to pursue a separate agenda of supporting the secessionist movement in South and mobilizing local fighters backing independence of the South. Then UAE ने अपना maritime footprint को भी और expand किया है in the region by taking control of the Yemeni ports and Socotra Island in the Gulf of Aden. तो आप इस island को locate करोगे, Gulf of Aden आपको पता होना चाहिए which all countries border it. Then Perim Island कहाँ located है? That is at the mouth of Bab el-Mandeb Strait. So ये सारी important locations हो जाती हैं. Then UAE ने अपना base भी establish किया in Eritrea and Somaliland. So thus putting in place an unassailable strategic network that links the Gulf with the Red Sea and the Horn of Africa. So even Horn of Africa, you need to know which all countries constitutes the Horn of Africa. So these have been some of the areas where we've seen differences emerging. And then UAE, it also normalized its ties with Israel. And we know that Israel and Saudi Arabia, they are not in good terms. And this was basically, it showed how UAE it publicly dumped the Saudi-sponsored Arab Peace Initiative that requires Israel to accommodate Palestinian interests before Arab states they normalize the relations with Israel. So this was also clearly visible. And then when we talk about the competition in the same sector, so Saudi UAE competition, it is now touched domestic areas as well. So what are those domestic areas? Two countries, they are seeking regional primacy in the same sectors. जब हम बात करते हैं global business में, tourism, finance, and technology. So there is growing competition between the two countries in the same domestic areas, and Saudi Arabia is also wanting to become the principal hub for regional trade, thus challenging the UAE, which is presently dominant player. तो दोनों एक दूसरे को in a way they are challenging each other's dominance in different sectors. One of them is regional trade. So UAE जो size की अगर हम बात करें geographically size is smaller and but it has made it clear that it will not be the kingdom's junior partner चाहे आप political, economic, logistical arenas की बात करें. So size does not matter. It compensates for its small size with the vision, dynamism and ambition of its leaders. So that makes, or when we talk about basically you can't say कि अगर size of the country is small है तो it is going to be merely a junior player in a particular area. So आपका vision, आपका dynamism, ambition or goal, your dedication plays an important role and it is obviously something important over the size of a country. So these are something important information related to changing geopolitics in the Arab world and again Central Asia as well. So this article is dedicated on smartphone manufacturing in India. So we see that over the last few months, former RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan and Minister of State for Electronics Rajiv Chandrasekhar, they have sparred over how well a central government scheme to boost electronics manufacturing has been faring. So what initiatives has the government taken to boost electronics manufacturing? We'll talk about that. What is the policy about it? So what happened? We see that it started when Raghuram Rajan, along with the two other economists, they released a brief discussion paper arguing कि ये जो program है, that is not really pushing India towards being a self-sufficient manufacturing powerhouse. So in a way, this was challenged. And government said कि it is using the मतलब उन्होंने बोला कि the government है it is using taxpayers money to create an ecosystem of low level assembly jobs that will still depend heavily on imports. So जो यूनियन मिनिस्टर थे उन्होंने इसको बोला कि these are half truths which are built on shoddy comparisons. So PLI scheme जो है that has been initiated by the government. So around 5 years ago, government of India decided कि wanted more companies to make things in India. So Make in India initiative हमने launch किया. Manufacturing that is going to be key ingredient जब हम हमारी economic growth की बात करते हैं. So one of the potential areas where we can see expansion and growth is manufacturing in India. एंड ये भी बोला जाता है कि ऑब्वियसली जब हम एक सिंगल इनिशिएटिव की बात कर रहे हैं इन द मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर तो उसके मल्टीप्लायर इफेक्ट्स होने वाले हैं व्हाट द इकोनॉमिस्ट कॉल एज द मल्टीप्लायर इफेक्ट्स लाइक एवरी जॉब दैट वुड बी क्रिएटेड एंड एवरी रूपी दैट वुड बी इन्वेस्टेड इन मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इट विल गोइंग टू हैव अ पॉजिटिव cascading effect on other sectors in the economy as well. So this is called the multiplier effect phenomenon. So problem जो थी that was many industries that did not want to set up shop in the country. So आप कैसे investment को attract करोगे इंडिया में? So इंडिया का जो infrastructure है that is not great and countries labor laws जो हैं they are archaic and workforce that is not very skilled. as per the demand. So to solve this, government it used and it is still using a carrot and stick approach. So stick is raising of the import duties, thus making it more expensive for the companies to import the stuff. So obviously they are in a way being pushed towards domestic manufacturing, and carrot element is to provide subsidies and the incentives, and obviously one of them is the PLI scheme itself. So that's how been our approach towards more growth and expansion in manufacturing in India. So that's there. You can like go through rest of the article once. So concerns क्या है about drilling in the North Sea? पहले तो आपको पता होना चाहिए North Sea proper area क्या है. So why is the new move by UK government? It is worrying the environment experts. Environmental concerns here because of deep drilling into the North Sea, and how does the offshore drilling it is going to affect marine biodiversity. Then again, climate change committee का क्या कहना है over this plan. So history of drilling की अगर हम बात करें in North Sea only. So geographically जो North Sea है, it lies between England and Scotland on its west, and Netherlands, Belgium, and France on its south, and Norway, Denmark, Germany on its east. So here you can like just visualize, otherwise you can also locate this on the map for much more clarity. So 1958 में Geneva Convention sign किया गया था regarding continental shelf. It was the first international legislation to establish rights of the countries over the continental shelves adjacent to their coastlines. So treaty it came into force in 1964. And apart from this, the Act also provides for exploration and exploitation of the continental shelf based on the 1958 Convention. So, एक Act implement किया गया था by the UK Parliament for exploration and exploitation of the continental shelf. So it delineated the jurisdiction of UK had over oil and gas resources under the seabed near its shores. So the first license for exploration in the UK North Sea, it was awarded to the British Petroleum 1964 में. So drilling activities तब से चल रही हैं. So basically वहाँ पे crude oil extraction किया जाता है, natural gas liquids they are available. So ये natural resources है जिनका exploitation या drilling से related activities की गई हैं in the North Sea. But with time we are seeing कि production जो है that is declined massively. So offshore drilling problematic क्यों है? So according to the US based advocacy group of Natural Resources Defense Council, उन्होंने बोला है कि जो ऑफशोर ड्रिलिंग है it puts the workers, waters and wildlife at risk. Workers, waters and wildlife, they are at risk because of this drilling. And drilling in sea and oceans for the fossil fuels not only aggravates threat of climate change, but it also leads to warming of the oceans and raises the sea level as well. So कुछ major concerns हैं, and it is associated with a direct risk to marine biodiversity as well as indirect risk भी associated है in terms of the threat to coral reefs, shellfish and marine ecosystem from acidic waters because of carbon pollution. So ये major concerns हैं. And climate committee का क्या कहना है, मतलब climate commitments की अगर हम बात करें, so we see कि 2023 की जो प्रोग्रेस रिपोर्ट है to the UK Parliament Climate Change Committee, it advises the UK and devolve the governments on emission targets that have been set. तो उन्होंने बोला कि UK it is not adequately prepared for the climate change under the second national adaptation program. So it is not better prepared. This was first thing that was highlighted by this committee. And government needs to follow, it needs to help prepare the country for the climate change as required under the Climate Change Act. So बहुत limited evidence available है of the implementation of the adaptation at the scale that is needed to fully prepare for climate risk. So that's lacking. So again, for your own benefit, you are not just, taking into considerations जो concerns है, चाहे वो marine life से related हो या workers who are into drilling exercises उससे related हो. climate change से related हो. So everything is off track except the drilling exercise that is going on. So one of the major issues जो निकल के आया है after the ethnic violence that has been witnessed in Manipur is the loss of official documents of the people. So obviously they're very important whenever you are going to, seek benefits of any government scheme, or even for that matter for simple exercises also. Your official documents are the first and most important thing. So since the people, they have lost their essential documents, so what is going to be the next step? So this has been highlighted by the Supreme Court panel as well. So Justice Geeta Mittal committee appointed by the top court submits 3 reports. So it suggests appointment of a nodal officer to take charge of the reconstruction of the documents. So a nodal officer appointed on a chair for this exercise. It seeks substantial improvement in the compensation scheme as well. So these are the things that have been highlighted by this committee. So Prime Minister says that more jobs are available, people are moving to higher income groups. Prime Minister says economy has reached number 5 from 10 position in 9 years, and citizens, they are coming forward in large numbers to pay their taxes as they knew that every rupee is being spent on the nation's development. So यहाँ पे objectively जो हम topics extract कर सकते हैं, that is data and the situation, we can say the progress regarding filing of the ITRs. You can talk about the expansion of our tax base, the new group that is emerging. And apart from this, again, the growing size of the middle class, that becomes important. And apart from this, India, when we talk about the income category of India as a whole, so numbers about that, our performance regarding that, like when is India going to move into the higher income group? What are the criteria that are established by the World Bank regarding this? So you need to find out about all these things. So Om Birla says that public should be holding the lawmakers accountable for conduct in the House. That is regarding their conduct in the House. The disruptions in the legislature can come down if voters, they hold their elected representatives accountable for their behavior in the House. So when the voters of a particular legislature, they start questioning their elected representatives about disruptions and unparliamentary conduct inside the House, then it is being thought that it might impact their behavior, and then disruptions, they will come down. So this is what he has to say. So it's important to be neutral, and yeah, that is important to maintain the unbiased nature of functioning. And main issue यही है, functioning of the parliament, the quality of discussions coming down, number of discussions coming down, and we are seeing more of disruptions rather than successful completion of a session. So you can just go with the numbers. You can search about that online. So Saudi border guards have killed hundreds of Ethiopian migrants. So allegations point to an escalation of abuses along the perilous route from Horn of Africa to Saudi Arabia. So refugee crisis, all important international conventions that have been signed for safeguarding their interests, that's important again. India is not a signatory to the convention that is there. But still, how we have, you know, acted in terms of safeguarding their interest. We have not pushed them back again. We have not killed them. That is important. And here, in the context of Saudi Arabia and basically migrants or say refugees were moving from the Horn of Africa to Saudi Arabia, so they have been killed by the Saudi border guards. So Ecuadorians, they have rejected the oil drilling in the Amazon. That is a historic decision. So in a historic decision, Ecuadorians, they voted on Sunday against the oil drilling of protected area in the Amazon that's home to two uncontacted tribes, and they serve as the biodiversity hotspot. So again, we can say growing activities of the private sector versus development, or you can say versus the environmental safety. That is the dilemma. And with over 90% of the ballots they which were counted by the early Monday, they around 6 in 10 Ecuadorians, they rejected this oil exploration. So the tribes which reside in that area is the Tagari and Taromenani. So they live in self-isolation. So there has been the final decision regarding oil drilling in the Amazon basin. On the business page, amid the air traffic rebound, jet fuel demand yet to catch up. So that is there, and slower rebound in the long haul travel and a distressed airline industry have led to lower demand for the jet fuel, and low demand is expected to persist through 2023 even as flight traffic that has recovered. So we are not going to see that robust a demand in civil aviation sector, and we have critically analyzed and discussed what are the major concerns regarding India's civil aviation industry. So चाहे आप mental health की बात करो, sleep deprivation की बात करो of the pilots, of the crew that is there, that is a growing concern. Number of holidays and breaks that needs to be given to them is going to play an important role, because again, it is about all the passengers that are traveling, about their safety in their lives. So India and ASEAN, they agreed to review the Goods Trade Pact by 2025 to fix the asymmetry. ये हमने in detail discuss किया था yesterday or day before yesterday. So this has been taken up. This is about the ASEAN India Trade and Goods Agreement जो 2009 में साइन किया गया था. उसकी हमने परफॉर्मेंस की भी बात करी कि basically trade activities कैसे shape हुई, what has been the trend since then, and now what changes are required, what are the concerns, what is the asymmetry about. Asymmetry is obviously India के जो imports है वो ज़्यादा increase हुए compared to the exports to ASEAN countries and markets. So the FPI's buying in Indian shares fell in the first half of August. So ये बहुत important element है. Again, this is related to volatility and a lot of fluctuations, and this directly impacts even our exchange rate as well. So time to rebuild the grouping, talking about BRICS. So let's see all the important detail about it. So यहाँ पे पहले ब्रिक्स की हिस्ट्री की बात की गई है कि हाउ डिड दिस आइडिया अबाउट ब्रिक्स इट took a shape. So idea of the BRICS side gained prominence early 90s में when Goldman Sachs economist Jim O'Neill, he coined the term to refer to major developing economies, that he said they would grow to dominate the global economy. So he thought कि जो BRICS countries हैं, they were the major developing economies and countries, and in future they would be dominating the global economy. So leaders of Brazil, Russia, India, and China, they met as part of the new grouping 2009 में. The first time when they met. South Africa को add किया गया 2010 में. So earlier it was only BRIC. So South Africa. So after the addition, it became BRICS. And grouping is mainly known for backing the reform of multilateral institutions. So this is one of the major agendas or the major objective to allow greater representation among the major developing countries. So BRICS जो grouping है, was seen as a non-Western powers coming together to articulate their interests. तो कहीं ना कहीं ये भी बोला जाता है कि whether BRICS is anti-West or not. क्या ब्रिक्स आज के टाइम में रेलेवेंट है कि नहीं? सो टॉकिंग अबाउट इट्स रेलेवेंस, जो इनिशियल प्रॉमिस था ब्रिक्स का उस दैट की जो इकोनॉमीज रहेंगी दे वुड ग्रो रैपिडली एंड दे गोइंग टू डोमिनेट द ग्लोबल ग्रोथ बाय 2050, बट वो अभी तक मटेरियलाइज नहीं हुआ है, पर्टिकुलरली जब हम बात करते हैं रशिया एंड साउथ अफ्रीका की. सो हाई कमोडिटी प्राइसेस दैट इज बीइंग फ्यूल्ड बिकॉज ऑफ ब्राजील्स ग्रोथ इन द 2000s दैट डिसअपीयर्ड. ओनली चाइना एंड इंडिया दे हैव ग्रोन स्टेडीली, if not quickly, but they have been growing steadily. So consistency and momentum has been maintained over the last decade. And members of the grouping, they're also at loggerheads जब हम India and China की बात करते हैं. And larger objectives like the reform of the multilateral institutions that have also not seen much progress. So this has led many to question the bloc's relevance as well. But this is like obviously a group of people, and everybody has a different perspective about the relevance of BRICS. So we can't say that it is not relevant in today's times. That cannot be said. So recent जो summit होने वाला है Johannesburg, South Africa में, what is going to be the agenda? This, although like we have discussed it a number of times. So a common BRICS currency to challenge the dollar, that is surfaced. Then expansion of BRICS, why countries they are interested in joining, that we have discussed in detail. Quote of the day is, we will urge the international community to refocus on development issues, promote a greater role by the BRICS cooperation mechanism in global governance, and make the voice of BRICS stronger. So this is what Chinese president has to say before the summit. So we are going to have an R&D mission to seek the cures for the ignored Indian diseases. So 10-year strategy unveil की गई है, which is going to be a new national policy जो focus करने वाली है on animal health care. So जो ignored diseases हैं, we are going to work upon that in terms of research and development and find solutions for that, cures for that, with the remedies for them. So India का पहला national policy on research and development in pharmaceuticals and medical technology. It sets out to create a new drug discovery mission, a move that would focus on Indian ailments and plug a gap in the world's biggest manufacturer of generic medicines. So this is the gap which exists. And policy also pushes promotion of R&D in animal healthcare, as about just 70% of infectious diseases in the last 3 decades globally जो हमें देखने को मिले, they have originated in animals. So origin animals में हुआ of almost 70% of the infectious diseases. So this is also going to focus on research and development in animal healthcare. So that is one of the new developments. Then you can explore about India and Vietnam relationship, our importance, the importance of the relationship that we share, and how have been our ties in the past. That also becomes important geographically also. There are several important topics and things to be discovered over years. So the ties assume additional significance in the backdrop of India's 2-year-long Ladakh border standoff with China and Beijing's aggressive moves in the South China Sea that directly impacts Vietnamese security. So this is one of the areas, and so Vietnam, it is trying to engage with New Delhi to counterbalance growing Chinese belligerence in the region, that is South China Sea, and offset the push and pull dynamics of its engagement with Russia and the US. So when we talk about the trade between the two countries, that has crossed $15 billion in 2022. And we're also in talks about signing of trade agreement. So जो trade है, it has grown gradually between the two countries in the last few years, and both the countries have agreed to explore substantive practical measures to achieve the trade target of $15 billion at the earliest. So India export करता है iron and steel, electric machinery, cotton and cereals to Vietnam. And Vietnam export करता है electric and electronic equipments, machines and mechanical appliances, inorganic chemicals to India. Coming to Financial Express newspaper. So PM Kisan support, it may zoom 50%. So first, you can talk about effectiveness. क्या actual results निकल के आए हैं? What has been the effectiveness of the PM Kisan scheme? Its relevance, and farmers, they may get up to rupees 3,000 more. तो again, इस decision के पीछे what has been the factors that has led to this decision? So you need to explore that area. So यहाँ पे spending का हमारे पास data है, procurement data है. So procurement under MSP, that is going to be stepped up. So right now जो financial aid farmers को provide किया जाता है under PM Kisan, that is rupees 6,000 annually उनको अभी amount pay किया जाता है. So expectations ये है कि 3,000 more would be given to the farmers. So जब हम बात करते हैं importance and relevance of the free trade agreements जो हमने history में भी sign किए in terms of the FTA signed with Japan या South Korea की बात करो, तो performance of FTA हमारे लिए बहुत important area, because we have seen कि they have not performed up to the mark and expectations. So we see कि exports to FTA countries, they contract at a faster rate. So here you can see ki why they are not that relevant and not that important when it comes to export promotion and expansion. So shipments to the partners, it is declined by 18% against 8% dip in the overall exports. So in case of SAFTA, you can see we enjoy a trade surplus. Apart from this, you can see everywhere we have trade deficit, and there we have also the percentage growth. So the merchandise trade has recorded a positive growth in case of Japan, Korea, and SAFTA. Otherwise, in rest of the countries or regions, we have suffered a decline. So India, it is open to larger BRICS and trade in the local currency. That is also on the agenda. And here again, we have the data about the trade. So 16% is the BRICS share in the world trade, 31% BRICS share in the world GDP, 42% BRICS share in the world population. So जब हम relevance of BRICS की भी बात करते हैं, so you can cite this data. एंड इंडिया का मर्केंडाइज ट्रेड विद ब्रिक्स, इसका ट्रेंड अगर हम देखें एक्सपोर्ट्स एंड इंपोर्ट्स, तो इंपोर्ट्स ज्यादा इंक्रीज हुए कंपेयर टू द एक्सपोर्ट्स. एंड $32.8 billion has been a lending by the New Development Bank, जो ब्रिक्स का बैंक है, in the 8 years of its operation. And then even like member specific data भी है as far as the trade is concerned. So here you can see this advertisement is talking about Indo-Nordic cooperation. So Nordic countries, पहले बताना चाहिए कौन सी countries है, कहाँ वो located है. Then India-led global life movement, lifestyle for the environment has been one of the recent initiatives. Green hydrogen, biofuels, renewables, so sustainability through green growth. That is one area where we are focusing. Coming to Indian Express newspaper, we talked about Chandrayaan 3 and the picture that we received about the dark side of the moon. The far side of the moon has been captured by Chandrayaan 3. So Supreme Court panel ने बोला है कि you need to reissue the IDs that have been lost due to the violence and upgrade the compensation in Manipur. तो इंडिया चाइना टाइज भी फोकस में रहने वाले हैं ड्यूरिंग द ब्रिक्स समिट. So Pragyananda, he beats world number 2 in chess and he sets up title clash with Carlson. So you can see in the picture he's with the US champion and world number 2, Fabiano Caruana, during the World Cup semi-finals. So we are seeing that a new wave has emerged after the COVID-19 of the Indian teenagers, specifically in the chess landscape. So you need to think about what can be the reason behind this. So you can see that he is just 18 years old and where he has reached. It's making us proud, he's making the country proud. So the other young bright star is D. Gukesh, and you can see their names. They're all walking the path paved by Chennai boy, who goes by the name of Prague on the global chess circuit. So famously, he is called Prague. So talking about the holes and challenges in the financial safety net. So we see in the absence of significant governance reforms, effectiveness of the global financial safety institutions hai, that is also eroding. So India is better off relying on prudent macroeconomic policies. So again, we're talking about resilience of the Indian economy. So here we have this graph depicting the evolution of the global financial safety net between 1995 and 2021. And the figures are in billion of US dollars. So you can see the blue one is about IMF. Then red one is for the RFAs 3 and gray is for the BSAS. So green, you can see the trend that gross international reserves, how they have been increasing. And specifically after we can see 2005 and 2007, it started to increase. It reached its top and then it is stagnating over there. So we see that since the turn of the century, the economic weight of the EMDs, it has increased significantly, the emerging market developing economies. They have increased significantly, so they have come into prominence without being reflected adequately in their voting quota and governance structure of the IMF. मतलब यहाँ पे reforms are pending. We are seeing कि जो weightage है, जो importance है, जो share है of the emerging markets and developing economies, that has increased with time. But when we talk about reforms in their voting share, their quota and the governance structure of the IMF, so वहाँ पे reforms are still pending. So 16th review of the quotas is currently ongoing and it is supposed to be completed by the end of this year. Many observers, they believe that there is little chance of the major member countries agreeing to the consequences of such a quota review, which would significantly increase the quota share of China in particular. So that is going to be another concern associated with it. So until 1970s की अगर हम बात करें तो global financial safety net was managed by IMF through the relatively stable Bretton Woods system of semi-fixed exchange rates and controlled capital flows. And this system collapsed in the early 1970s when the questions arose over sustainability of US dollars convertibility to gold at a fixed exchange rate and availability of the enough gold to match increasing supply of the US dollars. So this was the reason why the system collapsed, and from the debris of this collapse arose the current system of floating exchange rates with no link to the gold, and relatively it is based on the open capital accounts. So 1980s and 1990s में they were marked by the frequent balance of payment crisis हमें देखने को मिली. Macroeconomic instability was witnessed in many emerging markets and developing economies with open capital accounts, which resulted in repeated capital flow volatility. So consequently, जो frequency and seriousness of the financial crisis वो increase होती गई, and between 1970 and 2011, there were around 147 systemic banking crises, 147, and 218 currency crises, 66 sovereign debt crisis, mostly in the developing economies. So IMF, it still continued to be the sole unsuccessful guardian of the financial safety net system, and a great deal of change it has taken place then, effectively transforming the global arrangements for addressing the sovereign financial crisis. So one of the most significant events जो देखने को मिला during the late 1990s was the Asian financial crisis. It was around 1997. So many of the countries, they were affected by this crisis. उनको ये लगने लग गया कि जो conditionalities impose की जाती है by the IMF, they were too onerous, which led many to increase their forex reserves as self-insurance. So उसके बाद से एक ये trend भी हमें देखने को मिला. And 2008-9 में North Atlantic financial crisis, it led to a host of innovations again in the system, the financial safety net system, and the US Fed Reserve set up bilateral swap lines with the major central banks in advanced economies, along with a few selected central banks in the emerging markets as well. And यूरोप की बात करें तो यूरोपियन फाइनेंशियल स्टेबिलिटी फैसिलिटी क्रिएट की गई थी एज अ टेम्परेरी क्राइसिस सोल्यूशन 2010 में, which then became the European Stability Mechanism. So individual country forex reserves, even that is increased to about USD 15 trillion, and a global network of BSLs, it has also proliferated dramatically. So जब हम COVID-19 crisis की बात करते हैं तो IMF, it has lent around USD 118 billion to 22 countries in the Western Hemisphere. So USD 25 billion to 40 countries in Sub-Saharan Africa, इतना amount दिया गया. They have the figures. So इस data को analyze करके हमें ये समझ में आता है कि when more developed countries, they suffer from the crisis, the magnitude of loan to them, they are much larger than similar crises in the emerging markets, though with some exceptions. So exceptions को side रख के अगर हम देखें कि अगर developed countries में crisis होती है तो उनको जो loan दिया जाता है that is of higher magnitude compared to जो financial help दी जाती है in terms of aid to the emerging markets जब वहाँ पे crisis देखने को मिलती है. तो why is basically this discrimination existing there? Why is this inequality prevalent? So again जैसे बोला कि जो governance reforms है IMF में they're still pending. Currently, its relative importance and effectiveness it could get progressively eroded because reforms नहीं किए जा रहे हैं. So it should be particularly careful in opening the capital account. So capital account reforms and opening up, again, this is also an important topic specific to India also because our capital account is still not, 100%, free, as we say. So especially to the volatile debt inflows into the bond markets, there is enough international evidence over the past 3 to 4 decades जो ये suggest कर रहा है कि volatile capital flows they are among the leading reasons for overall जो macro and balance of payment instability हमें past में देखने को मिली है. So completely 100% opening of the capital account से related ये major concern है. And again जैसे कि अभी मैंने बोला this is also an important topic of debate specific to India as well. So crucial last 15 minutes. So the power descent of the Chandrayaan-3 lander, it will likely begin around 5:45 p.m. IST on 23rd of August. So 4 phases में module, it will come close to the surface, it will slow down and move towards the landing site. So that's how it is going to be there. You can see last 15 minutes. So this is going to be the proposed trajectory of its landing on the South Pole. So this topic we've already seen the global clothing retailers, they are moving out of Myanmar, and here again, India enjoys one of the opportunities in terms of attracting them towards Indian markets. So this is an important topic from science and technology. NVIDIA's GPUs, these are the hottest items in artificial intelligence boom and why they are in short supply. So let's understand about their importance and relevance. So we have a good lead on 512 H100s that will come online in 4 to 6 weeks. And if we have more than that much demand, we can probably find more of them. So this somewhat abstract post by the San Francisco Compute Group, which is a new project aimed at enabling entrepreneurs and researchers to get access to the specialized computer chips. So ये हैं specialized computer chips. And again, demand ज़्यादा है तो we're seeing shortage of supply. So these are brands of high-end chips, which are called the graphics processing units or the GPUs. And these constitutes to which continue to face a massive supply crunch and skyrocketing demand. So you can see the keywords that have been used. Massive supply crunch, skyrocketing demand. So obviously shortage ही create होगा market में. And these are basically high-end computer chips, graphic processing units. So दो reason है behind the shortage. One is the generative AI boom that has led to demand for these specialized chips to explode, and these basically the benefits of these chips is that they allow operational efficiency in terms of calculations that allow the AI companies working on the large language models. And another reason is only one major firm is producing these types of chips, that is US-based NVIDIA Corporation, which has seen valuations top $1 trillion since the LLM booms, and it is now swarmed with orders that it is struggling to deliver. So the success of NVIDIA it is particularly related to India that is looking to enter the nearly closed loop chip manufacturing space. So current policy जो है, that is the approach is focused on manufacturing of the mature nodes. That is जो chips हैं that are 40 nanometers or above, and they are used in sectors like automotive industry. So इस पे right now India is focusing upon जो more advanced nodes हैं as far as more strategic and require they are like more strategic and they require exceptional manufacturing and the project skills. So that is the focus for India as far as the chips production is concerned. So Donald Trump का कहना है कि he would impose reciprocal tax on India if voted to power. So he says कि once he comes into power, he's again going to raise the issue of high taxes in India on certain American products, particularly iconic Harley Davidson motorcycles. ये पहले भी किया था when he was in power. And he's threatened to slap reciprocal tax if he's voted to power in the next presidential elections in 2024. So when he was in power, he also terminated India's preferential market access under the generalized system of preferences to the United States, alleging that India it is not given United States equitable and reasonable access to India's markets because India जो है higher taxes impose करते, तो that's why he's saying कि if he comes into power, he'll put reciprocal tax, मतलब tit for tat kind of thing. So with this, we end here, and I hope the discussion that we did, you might have found it useful and you might have learned something new today. So if you have any kind of doubts, do share your feedback and your doubts in the comment section. Kindly subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you for watching.